Hola, buenas tardes. Vamos a empezar ahora el panel. Yo haré una rápida introducción en español, pero después vamos a pasar en inglés, ¿vale? Pues acá la idea es tener casi una conversación, no necesariamente ponencias individuales, y sobre el tema que los que habéis visto en la programación, que son operaciones de M&A en el contexto de la revolución tecnológica, ¿no? First of all, I'll make a small introduction of myself. I'm Brunno Morette. I'm from Brazil. I'm a partner at the M&A department of Cascione Advogados. And I'm very glad to be here in this afternoon in this program, in this congress that has been organized by the World Jurist Association. And the idea here, once again, entering already, and each one will be able to introduce themselves, okay? And the idea here, when we talk about technical revolution, we cannot say something about it without mentioning AI and its regulation, right? So from the Brazilian perspective, there is no specific regulation in place yet. We have a bill of law that is being discussed. It's based on the European AI Act. It has a lot of inspiration from the European law. It has already been approved in the Senate and is still being discussed in the other house, okay? And in several aspects, it has some similarities with the European law in the sense that it establishes different levels, the risk levels of the type of artificial intelligence that we are using, defines the AI agents and processors, what are their roles, their obligations. Maybe there will be some public body that will be responsible for seeing this issue, and also the liability, which also has a significant penalty that can be imposed, similar to the European law. Apart from that, there's something that is quite new that was enacted in April 25, which is another type of regulation. Instead of creating this complex regulation, there was a change in the criminal code to establish a higher penalty for those who use the AI unduly for a specific purpose, which is the use of AI or artificial measures to create or cause psychological damage in women. In the sense that it's basically to punish people that use deepfake involving women, okay? And apart from that, there is also, in the Brazilian data protection law, we also had a provision that regards the review of automatized decisions, that the data subjects that are allowed to request a review of decisions that are made through automatized systems, which are basically AI. And also there is a duty to inform these data subjects that AI is being used and how it's being used and how it takes its decision, okay? And trying also to bring to what we'll be discussing, which is M&A transactions. I think that everybody will be able to give their view on the subject. But I think that from a law firm perspective, AI is here. It's a matter that you can try to either fight it or accept it and search what is the best way that you can use it, considering its current state of art, which is, in my personal opinion, it helps certain tasks, but we're not in a situation where it will actually replace the work of a lawyer. There are some tasks that can be done that it's already replacing. We still have some development to be made, but I think that the law firms that are not ready and try to see and understand how they use it, of course, with all the responsibilities and cares that it needs regarding liability, regarding checking the information that is provided, but it's something that there's no way back. And that's basically my brief introduction. I'll pass the word to Jeffrey.
So I'm Jeff Berkman. I am one of the founding partners of a law firm called Falcon, Rappaport, and Berkman. We are an 80-plus law firm with offices, many offices in the United States, and we also work quite a bit with lawyers around the world in the cross-border work we do. Are we going to go to the questions first, or just do it?
5 minutes.
Okay, so when I was preparing for this, I thought to myself, what is something to think about in terms of technology generally, as it relates to lawyers and as it relates to the lawyers and their clients. And I hearken back to 2000 when I was working for a tech guy as his general counsel. And he would walk in the early days of venture capital, when it was sort of the Wild West, and he would go to companies, and no matter how good their financial situation was, he always looked at their technology. In those days, it was as simple as, did they have a website? This is shocking for, I'm sure, everybody in this room, but 25 years ago, there were many companies, most of them didn't have a website, and if they did, it was terrible. So as we move forward, thinking of technology back then and that being sort of an inflection point early on, we're at the same inflection point, I think, today regarding technology, because AI is changing everything, obviously we well know, in our daily lives, but certainly as lawyers and how we speak to and deal with our clients. So we have two ways that we have to think about it. We have to think about how we use it as a law firm, as lawyers, and how our clients use it. And actually a third way, how anybody who's interested in buying that client, because this is about M&A, mergers and acquisitions, how the buyer views that target. So when we do that, we have to come back from different perspectives. Us as a user, the lawyers as a user, like they are of any technology, an analysis of how the clients are using it in terms of their, whether they have policies in place, whether they have rules, regulations, because AI has, very, very many different complexes. It has the capability to be used wrong, not only in things like deepfake, but within a company. You could violate privacy rules, for example. You can lose data because you don't have good data security policies. And then we have to think about that same thing when someone's interested in acquiring the company. So we're going to touch, I think, upon many of these issues. I don't want to go too in depth because I think these are some of the questions we're going to discuss. But if anything you take away from this is AI is here to stay, and all of us, whatever we do as lawyers, are going to have to understand the implementation vis-a-vis ourselves as we function as lawyers and as it relates to our clients.
Thank you. Short introduction. I'm attorney at law for law firm working in Austria, Germany, and Arab Emirates. My main focus is also transactions. Trustee for transactions, escrow agent for these transactions, asset deals, share deals, real estate focused. And I think also not only two groups of problems, but also two use of groups, what we use the AI, that we have to distinguish. The one I think is legal research, and the other one is the ease of our daily work. And always thinking about when we use AI is the reason why do we use it. I think our aim as lawyers is to bring the best results to the client. So we have to use it. I think it's not a question of fight it or use it, we have to use it for cost reasons, because we will be asked one day, why didn't you use that? You put a junior for legal research for 1 week, you could do it within 1 day. And the other reason is also, of course, to have state-of-the-art results. And I think there is still the use of the lawyer, because as a lawyer you need to ask the right questions. And to make this machine work, you also need to put the right questions on the prompter to get the right results. And of course, the second thing is always to be critical. What is the result? So I was thinking a little about the two groups. Legal research, how did it work until now? You worked with some platforms for research, with issue a library, whatever. You had some juniors sitting there spending hours and bringing results. So what happens now? You put in a question, you get a result. But the challenge is, first, not to replace the lawyer, but to get a new kind of training for him, but also to think about the reliability. So what is the result worth that comes from this research? And this is, I think, a new focus you have, but it is worth going. And what we need for legal research, I think, is always to keep in mind what is the source, where does it come from, and can we really follow it? Is it up to date, the result, or is it just the search engine which brings any result? What we work with, just a practical aspect, we created together with a second law firm and with 2 search engines working in the Austrian-German market. We created the so-called AI Associate, which is a kind of search machine which uses only these legal research platforms. So it's not general internet search, but only on these legal platforms, and always combined with the source of it.
So thanks, Harald, for this initial introduction. I will give now the microphone to Professor Yang Di, so she can make her personal introduction.
Okay, thank you, Horster. I'm Di Yang from Xiangtan University. My major is corporate law, and I do corporate law research for many years. Today, I will use a real M&A transaction case and China's AI regulation to show how innovation can coexist with responsibility. The PKR Labs control in 2022, PKR Labs, an AI video startup, was acquired by a major tech firm. Sounds promising. The problems began soon after. Number 1, data leaks. User data was moved to overseas servers against regulation. Number 2, corporate misuse. AI-generated content was used for commercial purpose without compensation original asks. Now let me tell you how China is responding to these issues. In August 2023, China introduced new regulations specifically for generative AI services. What they are doing? First, they require all training data to stay within China. This means sensitive data, sensitive information like the financial data and the health records data must be kept secretly on domestic servers. Big companies like Alibaba Cloud are now operating all their critical AI systems locally. Second, there is a new transparency requirement. AI system must explain how they are trained and give credit to original sources. For example, I use the Wenxin Yiyan app. I ask her each question, and she will give me feedback. In the feedback, it will mark like this image contains copyrighted material by somebody. Third, they are strengthening user protection. Company must explain exactly how user data will be used. Even app like Athletic, a major voice recognition company, have updated their privacy policies to include special section about AI training protection. Does it work? I give you 2 numbers. First, after the implementation of these new regulations, the average complaints cost for Chinese AI companies have increased by 25%. Second, International Authoritative AI Ethics assessment, the complaints rate of Chinese AI products have risen from 62% to 91%. I think the AI regulations in China has worked very well. Thank you. I give the.
Good afternoon. My name is Máximo Bergés. I am a senior partner in Bergés, Dreyfous, Abogados, which is a Dominican law firm, boutique law firm. Right now, I am heading the the litigation department in the law firm, and I was invited by the World Law Congress to work with this beautiful panel. So in the Dominican Republic right now, we don't have a regulation that actually rules all the AI programs. However, in 2023, President Abinader, he made a decree, the number 498, which orders to all the government to start working on AI programs within all the governmental institutions. That that decree was focused in three main parts. The first one was making every institution to start using new mechanism using the AI. The other one, the second thing to focus was to prepare the persons, the talent, and give enough information and courses to the person who work within the institution to be able to work with it. And the third one was to prepare the database to create all the infrastructure in the Dominican government to be able to work with the AI in all the institutions. Currently, there are two different projects of law in the Congress. One was deposited by the Senator Omar Fernandez, and he's looking for, this project of law tries to regulate the whole AI programs. And the other one was deposited by the Deputy Tobias Crespo. Tobias, what he proposed is to make a lot of limits to the government for the use of the AI. What he tries is to make rules that can forbid the government to abuse from the use of the AI. So thank you, I will keep on.
Hola a todos, soy Jesús Campos, director de BBCC Consulting, despacho establecido en China y Hong Kong desde hace más de 15 años y ahora en España. Desde nuestro despacho, especialista en M&A, creación de internacionalización de empresas y fiscalidad, pues es un orgullo participar en el World Law Congress. Hemos internacionalizado más de 200 empresas durante estos 15 años. Sinceramente, la IA creemos que debe estar al servicio del rule of law, regulada y fuera de intereses ajenos, estandarizada, apolítica y al servicio del derecho. Y esa labor es una labor minuciosa y que puede y debe llevar tiempo. Es una gran herramienta jurídica novedosa, un nuevo escalón tecnológico revolucionario y que puede asistir, pero no sustituir al jurista. Históricamente, bueno, la vida ha sido evolución. Hace 40 años irrumpieron los ordenadores en los despachos de abogados y todos aquellos abogados tuvieron que ponerse a entenderlos, a asimilarlos, a estudiarlos y a entender nuevos sistemas de archivos. Hubo que actualizarse y aprender a usarlos. La tecnología está al servicio del profesional, nunca para sustituirlo, pero no solo en el campo jurídico, sino en todos aquellos campos laborales que precisen la optimización. Entendemos que el salto de la IA es mucho más abismal y grande que la aparición de la era informática. No solamente las páginas web, como ha comentado nuestro compañero, sino realmente a la era de la informatización. La IA supondrá y supone un gran avance tecnológico en el derecho mercantil internacional, en cuanto a apoyo en redacción de documentos referente a fusiones, MOUs, LOIs, contratos, redacciones de estatutos básicos, implementaciones de regulaciones, etc. En labores de búsqueda, jurisprudencia, composición de textos, etc. Pero a fecha presente, esa es la única utilidad que le vemos. Una labor de research, una labor de apoyo, pero para nada fiarnos del amarillismo que están diciendo sobre la sustitución del profesional, ni de la injerencia, ni de la interacción, ni siquiera simultánea. No es posible, tal y como está desarrollada a fecha presente. También intentar por algún momento ver una decisión de un comité arbitral internacional referente a varias jurisdicciones de varios países diferentes, con sistemas jurídicos diferentes, basada en la IA. Es inviable. Sinceramente no, yo creo que no podría haberlo a fecha presente. Tendría que pasar tiempo y con el tiempo probablemente pudiera llegarse a algo parecido, pero lo vemos inviable. Entonces, tampoco la IA a fecha presente tampoco entiende de ontología, de principios generales del derecho, de valores constitucionales o de humanidad. Por eso únicamente insistimos en que es un mero instrumento. Es el apoyo del paralegal y en el futuro tal vez del procurador, pero le queda mucho por alcanzar y lo más importante, mucho por regular, estandarizar y consolidar normativamente. Consideramos prioritaria la normativización y estandarización de la IA. Bueno, y lo que sí sabemos es que el derecho debe ser el instrumento garante de la separación de poderes, del respeto a las instituciones y la salvaguarda de valores cívicos, de los tratados, de la concordia, de la paz, del rule of law. Por eso la IA únicamente será un instrumento de research por el momento. Gracias.
Very good. Thank you, Jesús, and all the other panelists for the introduction. And now we'll come back to Harald, and where we can pick where you stopped. And the first question, and also that I have to you, Harald, is what do you think is AI's role in private practice and the challenges generated by it to law firms? And also, considering that we have a very young audience, what type of advice would you give them when they join a law firm, or if they are already in a law firm, when using AI to do their work?
I think this question also refers to Professor D, of course, because it's a matter of training. And when we started to implement this AI associate, we asked our partners, is it the right thing to be used by the juniors? Because from the traditional point of view, working in law is not only working with your hands, it's understanding the background. And if you don't spend the time preparing really the whole picture, but only put one question there, it's a really big danger that you get one answer, but it's a wrong answer. The risk existed before too. You had sometimes a trainee working on something to prepare, and he spent some hours, and then he came back to you with the result, and you said, no, you forgot this one point, and back to the start. So it's still the same. As I said before, it is the lawyer's work to ask the right questions, first to the client, to understand the problem, to understand where we have to go, and then to find the way, the approach for the legal work. Of course, what we didn't mention now is, of course, we use AI also for other reasons. For example, to ease the daily work, to draft letters, or to scan documents, to analyze a lot of MA information and get to a point. And also here, it's also the question of liability, of data protection, of course, which is another issue, but of reliability. And if the result is really waterproof, because even the machine can miss something. And of course, I think that it gets more and more technical. Yeah, you need to know how to use the machine, and I think it's part of education, of course.
No, because that's something that I want to ask you, because from our practice, for instance, for due diligence, we have tried a couple of times to give the contracts and ask for the AI to summarize it. But even though you give them specific instructions, similar contracts come back with different answers, right? So that's one of the challenges also, right?
Yes, this is the challenge of reliability and trust in the machine. We're not here to make some advertisement or business, but we work with Harvey, which is, I think, an American product, which also expands to the European market. And the results are okay, yeah? You always need to spend some time, so you need to make checks. And as always, it's important to know the source. If the result can tell you, this is my result, and this is the source, it's a different thing than when you just get a result. Yeah. And you still need this, and of course, it needs some kind of trust in the technique.
Yeah, and also I think one of the important things is that you have to understand, at least nowadays, right? AI at least as an additional tool, and not the single tool, right? Oh, Jeffrey.
Yeah, so it's interesting in terms of that with the tools, because when I was thinking about doing this, like I'm sure a lot of the panelists in all the panels today went to AI and I asked the question, what are the good tools to use for due diligence? Because we are as well using Harvey. And it spit back an answer with about 6 or 7 different programs, and I looked at some information on all of them. And the ability to sort of dissect and make a decision and then recognize whether or not that's the appropriate tool is as much the challenge as in using the tool. Incorporating it into the firm's ecosystem is a huge problem. So we adopted Harvey so far in our firm, and it reminds me sort of a scenario where we're not sure how many people are using it. And when I first started practicing law in a very, very well-known law firm, I remember walking into a lawyer's office, a partner, he must have been 70 or 80 years old, and he had a PC, right? But in 90, having a PC in your office was still, the world was changing. And his use for it was to put his shoes up on it. Like, he literally put his feet up on the PC. He never used the thing, never turned it on. So the ability to adopt is also a challenge. And even with young people in our firm, we're questioning how much people are using it. Some are enthusiastic about it, some aren't. The other point I'd make is that, as Harald mentioned, the reliability of the tool, right? These tools, some of them talk about maybe missing 10 or 15%. So if I went to a client today and said, hey, I got an answer for you, I may be 15% of my answers may be incorrect. Is the client going to pay me or want to use me, right? So you have to have the human intervention without a doubt. And the last thing I'll say about any of these tools as we think about it in terms of M&A and just practice and using them is it's not sentient. It can't think like a human being yet. Its cause and effect is not capable. There have been a lot of articles recently about the inability. So you will need the intervention of junior people and lawyers to look at the results of the due diligence, and the fact that it's creating scenarios where in an M&A context, tell me all the leases where the provision exists or not, and is giving you incorrect answers, suggests why we will continue to have lawyers who need to practice law, and technology will not subsume our role in M&A practice.
Oh yeah, that's good, and I think that's that's the challenge, at least when I see for the young lawyers, because those are the two capabilities that the first one, to make the right questions, because if you don't have sometimes you don't have the expertise in making the right questions makes a lot of difference. Even if you're using Google or making a research, knowing where and what to ask is fundamental. But the issue is that, okay, let's say you made the right questions. How do you know that?
You need to understand the case to ask the right questions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the responsibility from the senior to give enough information.
Yeah, because that's the thing. That's something that I had a colleague that he also used to say that lawyering is a matter of flying hours, right? The more you fly, the more experience you have, the more you know where to go. So how do you have a young lawyer, a junior lawyer that doesn't have accumulated those hours yet, to be able to make the questions and also to know that the answer is missing or not, if there is some type of hallucination? So that's something that young people use in this type of tools that are here and must be used. They must keep that in mind, okay? Do you have anything else to comment, Harald?
I think that's perfect, yeah. And my motto is always, the result shall not be brought to please the partner. The result should be to please the client. And it's not working for the partner just to satisfy him, but the client. And I think the question is it integrated? Can you integrate it in education, in university training, also the work of it? Because it's more technical, of course, than law was before. Yeah.
Well, very good. So we can move to the next question. I'll make a question to Jeffrey. So Jeffrey, what do you think is AI's role in today's transactions, M&A transactions, nowadays, in the near future, and when we think about how it's affecting the transactional market? What buyers are looking for or not as far as potential targets in that scenario?
So in terms of, we've talked a bit about today already about its role in an M&A transaction. Clearly, one of the big roles it has right now is people are trying to use it in terms of due diligence. If used and checked in the way we talked about with human intervention, it can be a very useful tool. In the M&A world, we can go scenarios where we'll have, as an example, a company that has 120 or 200 store leases alone, and you need to hone in on a particular provision to see how it compares. Is this lease assignable? Does the landlord require approval? The ability of AI to digest that information and respond with an answer about which contracts fall into which category of assignability or not is tremendous. And so it will save clients a huge amount of time in the M&A process, because the biggest challenge in any M&A transaction is, if you're the buyer, it's the due diligence. If you're the seller, it's preparing the due diligence and then having that responses to what we call the reps and warranties, representations and warranties in the contract, and making sure those are accurate. So as a tool, that is a huge part of where AI is beginning to be used. I think another place is interesting is, as M&A lawyers, particularly, I'm sure it's the same for everybody on this panel, when we get a document, when we get a purchase agreement from another lawyer, another firm, it may not be exactly like ours, but we know it. We understand how the story works. We see the provisions in certain places, and if they're good lawyers, we likely don't have tons of comments because they're well written. But there will be some provisions in there where historically what you would do is compare them side by side, but some precedents or other things you use. AI will be able to take that and not, red line documents in the way that we require somebody to read through it. It will take the indemnification clause or whatever it is and say, this is out of market, this is not usual, this is not typical. And so it will have that capability, it has that capability now, and I think that's the other use. We're going to talk a little bit about challenges.
That's depend on training it, right?
Right, it depends on the training. So, but think about it in real time. If you were on a negotiation with the other side, a buyer or seller, and they're arguing over a particular clause, and you could actually go in and compare it to a whole slew of other through AI, you would have a stronger negotiating position, because you'd be able to say, market is this or standard is this. I mean, we do this all the time as lawyers, but to be able to point to us and say, well, 75% of the contracts always have this provision on indemnification or whatever it may be. So, but again, it's something we identified earlier. The ability is only going to be as good as the ability to ask the question, and then it will require constant human intervention, a legal lawyer's intervention, to understand whether whatever it produces is an accurate result.
Perfect. And about how it's affecting the market, on what buyers are looking for, or how it's affecting the transactions itself. So, what do you see in the U.S.?
So think about the market in two ways, right? There's the buyer and the seller. So if I'm the buyer, and this is a company that isn't using AI, is it behind? Do its competitors use AI better? Does that make that company more efficient? It doesn't. I teach law school, and one of the things I've always told junior lawyers or law students is, if you don't understand technology, if you don't understand intellectual property, you cannot be a good business lawyer. You cannot be a good corporate lawyer, because it's in everything we do today. So if the company doesn't understand how to use AI to improve whatever it is, even if it's not a technology company, it is going to be behind its competitors. And so as a buyer, you want to make sure that those policies, that's being used properly and in a competitive nature, and you're keeping up. The other issue I see is policies. There's a huge risk with use of AI, and that is violating privacy, personal information, data security. And if I'm a buyer and the seller does not have good policies in place, I could be very concerned about exposure down the road. So literally before I came here today, early this morning, I was helping a client write the AI policy for one of its portfolio companies on the theory that at some point someone is going to come look at them and want to make sure that they've been using AI as a tool in the right way and that the information is protected and that the people who work for them know to do that. If your target entity, if you represent the seller, is not doing that, you're going to be behind or possibly lose a deal because of the risk that someone says, in the same way you can have an employment law or a contractual issue or a litigation, if your policies and procedures don't match up with current practice, buyers are going to be very skittish. They would be very scared to want to enter that for the risk of the future.
So just to understand, when you are looking for a transaction, we should have to look at this in two different angles. One, let's say, would be the due diligence, to see if it has a policy, if it uses, and if it complies with the regulations and whatever. And the other one, we'll see how does it affect the business, not just the legal side, right? But also from a business perspective.
That's right, because as an M&A lawyer, whether you're the buyer or the seller, we have to understand the buyer or seller's business. We have to understand being the target. You don't walk into a deal and say every deal's the same, right? No two things are alike there. You have to understand, and so how they use AI will matter from both sides, regardless, importantly about who you're representing, but at the time, it's going to be important to how AI is incorporated in the right way or in the wrong way is essential, I think, at this point.
Very good. And Jesús, do you have comments on that?
Voy a decirlo en castellano, en español, que va a ser más fácil. Mirar, en respuesta a esta pregunta que me ha hecho, nosotros en mi despacho he mandado, me enteré hace media hora que tenía que responder a esta pregunta. Entonces le he dicho, pregúntale a la IA qué injerencia puede tener en un proceso de M&A. Me ha devuelto 4 hojas por delante y por detrás llenas de cosas que podría hacer en todos los aspectos de una fusión. Desde la valoración, contratos entre accionistas, pactos, exit shares, todo ese tipo de acciones, valoraciones de activos, búsqueda de cualquier tipo de injerencia que pudiera tener o vicio oculto de la empresa. Sinceramente, a fecha presente de hoy, porque la pregunta era a fecha presente de hoy, no puedo comprar ni el 20% de ese argumento. Y si no lo compro yo, que soy el abogado que estoy vendiendo el servicio, ¿qué me va a comprar mi cliente? Entonces, todo tiene que tener una justa medida y una estandarización. Probablemente en el futuro, pues sinceramente no lo sé. Pero de lo que sí que estoy seguro es de que las siguientes generaciones van a tener que saber de IA. Los abogados que nos superarán a nosotros como abogados serán abogados que sepan de IA, pero que a fecha presente no compro ni el 20% de la injerencia que me han dicho que puede tener. Entonces, volviendo un poco a la respuesta de la pregunta que me ha hecho, es bastante larga, pero bueno, a fecha presente yo le veo un punto en el research, en el draft, y tampoco mucho más apto para más. Buscar jurisprudencia, buscar casos similares, buscar antecedentes que pueda tener esa empresa o causas pendientes. Cuando el cliente busca comprar o vender una empresa, lo que está buscando, aparte de comprar y vender la empresa, es el mejor advice que tú le puedas dar. Y si tú te vas a pasar a darle un advice de una plataforma sin regularidad, sin regularizar y con un cierto sesgo, y que probablemente yo no compro ese porcentaje ni ese 20%, pues no creo que lo acepte el cliente y que no sea muy buen advice. A partir de ahí, la responsabilidad es mía, que yo sepa, la IA no tiene seguro consorcial, ¿no? A fecha presente. Entonces, ¿de quién es? Y también hay muchos tipos de IA, ¿a cuál le preguntamos? Y si es una sociedad que está pues en un país asiático o que quiere hacer un acquire, una sociedad europea o americana, ¿qué IA nos va a valer para preguntar? ¿A dónde vamos a preguntar? ¿O se estandariza o no podríamos? Eso es un poco la vuelta que yo le doy a todo esto. Gracias.
Very good, Jesús. Thank you for the comments. Now moving on to the fourth question. No, to the fourth question. To Professor Yang. Professor, what do you think is AI's role in today's teaching and also in the formation of legal professionals?
Okay, thanks for the question. I think the two lawyers already tell us the importance of the AI is just a tool, but a human being is the basement. So the cultivation of legal talents is very important in M&I transaction, and the AI has changed the traditional ways of teaching or cultivating legal professionals. Here are 3 ways AI has changed how we train legal professionals. Number 1, personalized learning. AI looks at what a student is good at and make a personal study plan. No more than one size fits all teaching. Students get practice that is just for them. Number 2, fast feedback and skill practice. AI can gradate legal work like contract or court arguments instantly and point out mistakes. Students don't have to wait for teacher to check their work. They fix errors right away and get better faster. Number 3, practice real-life scenario with AI. AI create fake but realistic legal situation like M&I deals or negotiations. Students can practice solving problems in these scenarios just like they would in a real job. This helps them get ready for work that use AI tools instead of just learning from textbook. So I think AI has also changed the teacher's role. The most important task for teachers is in AI age should be teaching students how to identify fake information, instead of just give them the facts. For example, when I ask AI to find the reference, it may make up something like, according to Mr. Robert in 3022, obviously it's a fake resource. But when we face some more complicated information, the student needs to have the ability to identify it, the error in it or the procedures in it. When the date be trained basis, it will show us a correct date. That is the key point. In AI age, teachers remain important because they help cultivate students' independent thinking, creative thinking, and critical thinking. In short, AI is a tool, but teachers shape the human skills that make legal professionals adaptable, ethical, and innovative in a changing world. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Harald, would you like to comment on Professor Xiangtan's answer?
I can fully agree. Of course, it's the awareness, the source, and all this, and the readiness to open up to the technique. Yeah, the readiness to use it, to integrate it, but still be aware that it is not only a handcraft. It is to understand the whole picture and not learning from textbooks, as you said, but trying to get the understanding, the overview, and then you can focus on the questions. Yeah.
That's good. Thanks. And now moving to the 5th questions to Máximo. So Máximo, how do you see that parties are incorporating AI analysis into their processes, and what impact does it have on investment decisions?
Well, as all of you have already commented, the AI is changing the world. And we attorneys are not out of it. We need to change as well. We have to update our way of working. Due diligence have always been the toughest part of our work. It is a lot of time. It takes a lot of reading, a lot of people working to be able to give a good diligence. So I believe AI is helping so much in reducing all the time costing of a transaction. It helps to avoid human mistakes. It helps to read things a lot faster because the AI can reduce everything. And I believe it also gives a more general view of the law of each country. I would like to to think about three different aspects. For example, for contracts, you can upload a contract in an AI, and the AI can give you a summary of everything. It also can tell you where are the important clauses in each one of the contracts. It can tell you if there's a clause in which you may lose control of the company. It can tell you when there is an abusive indemnification, abusive termination clauses. So it gives you a general view of everything. So I believe that we, the attorneys, have a really big challenge because we have to compete with it or make it ours. So thinking about other way, in another view, if you think about the financial situation of the transaction, you can scan all the financial statement of the company that you are working with. The AI will give you the information if it has any kind of unit that is not working as well as it should. It can also give you if there is something that is not giving the correct revenues. So it helps you to negotiate during the transaction. So I believe the parties actually need the attorneys because the big challenge is that even though it's a great tool, it's not perfect. And we as an attorney must, we can take advantage of it to make summaries of everything, but we need to understand how it works, and we also need to know how the law works within your jurisdiction. So you need to work with both of the things at a time to give a very good result. But not everything is like in paradise, because it helps you a lot, but I think that the big challenge is for the new generations, because the new generations, they have the tools right there, and maybe they are not, they don't have the expertise in the regular transaction every day to be able to understand where the AI is making a wrong thinking of something. So, and also the AI will give you results from the information that you provided. Maybe a new lawyer don't actually understand what is the right information that he should provide to the AI, so he won't get the good results. So it's very challenging, all this. I believe these are going to be really two very curious, important, and challenging decades to see how everything will work with this.
So I have a thought about this because I don't think it's been raised yet. When I think the biggest concerns ultimately for us as lawyers training other lawyers is there is a level of which the learning comes from digging in, from trying, from reading, from doing. And if everything is addressed through technology, the junior lawyers are going to learn in a way that's going to lose a lot of that challenge about learning, about reading documents, about understanding, about being challenged where there isn't an answer. We often tell the lawyers, junior lawyers in our firm, don't ask me a lot of questions. Go out and try first. And if you try it and we'll come back and comment on it. But if AI is going to give them the information from the beginning of how to do something, when they're sitting there in real time and need to negotiate, need to understand what the document said, they're going to be at a disadvantage. So I'm vigorously arguing with a lot of the fellow managing partners who are in their 30s and 40s about why the way I did it, the way we all had to learn to do it, is important. Because you learn it at a level that you cannot supplant with technology. So I think, again, like any new technology, I'm not a Luddite. I do not want to sit here and say don't use this by any means. I'm quite the opposite. But there needs to be a level of which we don't rely on it too extensively and lose the ability to be a lawyer.
I think a good analogy is the use of Google Maps or Waze. In the past, when you used to use maps, you know your way on the city. You know where you were, how to get there, you know. Nowadays, if your cell phone dies, you don't know how to get home. It's the same thing. You have to know the maps, know the way, so then you can use the technology. Of course, it makes you go faster, have more info, But knowing the situation, the position, everything, it's important so you can understand better and make a better use of the tool, and also understand if it's providing you with bad information, right?
So you need to know how to go home and how to use the map. Thanks to Maxim's insight. From his speech, I noticed key words is fast. Yes, yeah, it means the company can crunch lots of data really fast, like look at stock price, news, and even social media to find trends human-made miss. For example, it can help build better decision by figuring out the best mix of stocks or bonds based on your risk level. It also spots risky earlier, like if a market is about to get shaky, and can even execute trade in milliseconds, which is way faster than any human. Decisions happen quicker and on more databases, so less emotion messing things up. I always buy a lot of useless things by gut feeling, which means women always do some impulsive shopping, just like the emotion investment. But AI, on the contrary, is more reasonable, I think. So it will give you a more rational decision on commercial or investment. I think it's sometimes more wisely. So yeah, AI is big help, but it's not magic fix. It is all about mixing its speed with human smart to make the best choice. That's what I think. Yeah.
Very good, thank you, Professor D. And now moving to the last question to Jesús. Jesús, so what are your thoughts on the role of AI in the foreseeable future? And where do you think it will be useful? And where will you see the impediments?
Sinceramente, yo creo que pues la IA, siempre y cuando no influya en la deontología, y por eso menciono el aspecto para mí más importante del derecho, en el buen hacer del derecho, en la separación de poderes, en las garantías constitucionales y en la garantía de la libertad de las personas, y sea una herramienta, la IA, pues entiendo que será algo que irá conjuntamente con nuestro oficio. Los nuevos abogados serán mejores abogados que nosotros gracias a la IA, serán más rápidos. Yo creo que probablemente redacten contratos iguales o mejores que los nuestros mucho más rápido. Pero todo debe llegar y yo creo que debe regularse. Una vez esté estandarizada y se asuma un uso protocolario de la misma, entiendo que puede ser un instrumento buenísimo para garantizar todos aquellos aspectos que acabo de mencionar antes, que por lo menos en mi firma de abogados son los básicos.
Muy bien, thank you. And Máximo, do you want to comment?
I use AI. I use it. The thing is that we use it. You too? Yeah. I know.
She's using it right now, huh? We're seeing.
I got it. Sometimes I even, in the law firm, I have to draft something, and before asking a paralegal to do it, I ask the AI to do it, because it's faster. It works, it solves the problem in a minute. You have to look for a clause of something, instead of going to Google looking for some ideas or whatever, you just ask the AI and it helps you, give you all the statistic of how the clause works. So it is a very good tool, but I feel it is so dangerous for the new generations, because they don't, as the professor said, they won't get the chance to work with the things and get the good experience to be able to use it in the right way. Because right now, any college, they don't show you how to do that. That's something that you actually learn in the experience while you are in a law firm or being a judge or solving problems, that's how you actually understand how to reason a case and know how to do the right question to the AI. So I believe that the biggest challenge is that. I really think that the new generations, even though I really like you said they're going to be better lawyers, I'm quite sure, but I think they have a big challenge because they have to understand first how things works in a daily basis and then go to the AI. Because if they don't do it that way, the AI won't get the good responses.
And also, I think from a class that we had several years ago, I think the thing that when you standardize, everybody's doing the same work. So if everybody's doing the same work, why do you need so much people doing the work, right? The thing is that the more automatized the process is, more the intellectual side will be important. And you have to find in that context the works that you actually need the intellectual, the human side that the AI cannot replace. And I think that as lawyers, as young lawyers, you should be able to try to understand and use the tool, but also try to understand where does the human element enters in the equation and work on that.
So instead of making the paralegal to understand and work with it and learn how to work with it, you ask for the AI, and that day the paralegal didn't learn anything. So that's the big problem.
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
Well,
okay, so does anybody else has any other comments that I'd like to say? Or
Perhaps at the end, I may bring a thesis and an antithesis. The thesis is that legal work is still a human work. It's an interaction, it's tactics, when to put a question, how to negotiate, which people to know, which people to meet, which people to ask for a favor, for information, whatever. So this cannot be replaced. The antithesis is, it was Emperor William, German emperor, who said, I believe in the horse. The cars, they will leave. And I'm not sure if we're thinking about the same.
Perfect. And Jeffrey?
No, I would just say something similar in terms of every time some new technology comes along, people are scared about it. Some people like it. Some people are early adopters. Some people turn away from it. It's a fact. AI is here. We're going to have to figure out how to use it as lawyers and make sure we're using it in the correct way. It will advance and will improve the product that we create for for our clients. But like anything else, it still requires the human element. I was speaking earlier to someone who does a lot of valuations in M&A, and they said basically AI just isn't close yet. It isn't there. So we were talking about this earlier in terms of financials. It has a long way. But if you shun it, if you turn away from it, you are going to be way behind your competitors. And so that's the absolute reality. Don't fear it. Figure out how to use it, integrate it into your ecosystem, but continue to train young lawyers to be able to be lawyers and not just rely on technology.
Professor?
Okay. In a short, when AI began to learning, we need to know that AI can make fake, and AI can take responsibility. So, the regulation, we have regulation, not rely too much on AI, and remember how to go to your home. Thank you.
so AI is not only something that is going to be there, it's something that you really need to learn how to use it, because otherwise you will be left out. You need to use it. That's it.
Mi opinión, yo creo que la IA está aquí para quedarse y que debe estandarizarse.
Okay, so I guess that's it. Thank you all guys for attending. Hope you had enjoyed it. Questions? Yes, is the Mr. in the blue?
Thank you all. So, from an M&A perspective, since companies are starting to use AI in their transactions and in their day-to-day operations, how can we as lawyers, especially from the buy-side perspective, how can we properly evaluate and risk assess the AI use of companies, and then how can we portray that risks into DDP, due diligence, perspective due diligence report? Thank you.
You need to know how to use the technique. There is AI to find AI. We're working also with university, and we have 2 professors in our partners, and you need to find out which is fake, which is not fake. And I think the start is also to be critical about information, to be critical on sources, and I think the right due diligence program is now not only depending on the information made accessible, but also to make your own research and to trust in that.
Yeah, I would just say that the tool will be handy, but you will need to, everything we said about reviewing it, but you should also not just totally rely on it. So you're going to read the output. Does the output make sense in terms of due diligence? And going back and checking it, and then formulating your thesis, your ideas of what this means, right? So from the question about how I think you were alluding a little to like, how do we view this in terms of the target company, right? Look, there's technologists out there, just like they are today, and they will always be, who will assess how good the technology is. So, we as lawyers don't do that per se, but what we do is we make sure that whatever technology is being used, that the right policies and regulations exist. One thing we don't have in the United States in the way that is more prevalent, and certainly in China and Europe, is that we will never regulate AI the way it will be regulated in the rest of the world. We are just not, that's not how we operate. We do not have that civil law concept. And because of that, there is going to be a level, and there's always a level, where it's reliant on the company, the target, to make sure that those policies and procedures, and I'll go back to what I said earlier. I literally am working with clients to create these policies and procedures so that somebody doesn't make a mistake and release personal information or get data, stolen from them. And you are going to have to, as the lawyer, analyze those policies and procedures. On a more tech level, you will bring in consultants. We don't do this in a vacuum. We rely on other people as well when we act as a team when we're doing these transactions.
I guess just to make it short and simple, like everything else, you check out what are the legal requirements, what are the major risks that should identify that area, cover that in due diligence, and after that you try to pursue some type of protection in the SPA. Any other comments? Okay, so any other question?
It's not first of all, congratulations to you all. Well, it's not a question in itself, it's more like a joke or something to provoke, but I heard a very interesting quote, and maybe you could talk about it. It said that whenever microwaves were put in place in the market, whenever they were launched, everybody thought that cooking would not be necessary anymore. So maybe that's the same trend with AI, I mean, possibly people think that we won't need lawyers anymore, but it's not that the case. It's probably we need lawyers, but from another perspective. I would like to hear you from that.
Yeah, I think that it will not cause maybe the disruption in the industry, but it will change the way we work. I think that's it.
I have a boutique law firm. So this means that not all my clients are big clients. I have a lot of small clients too. And there's a lot of time that the clients just call me like, hey, Max, I have this old contract I already made, and I just want you to make a brief, check it out, and just let me know if I can sign it. And I say like, okay, don't worry, man. If it's 2-minute thing, send it. When I see it, you put AI. No, it was me. It's an old contract, man. You have no capability. I mean, you cannot do that. I'm sure you can't. Okay, but how is it? No, come here, pay your bill. That's it. come here to work with it, because this doesn't work like that here. Okay, then. But that's something that, like you said, everybody will need the profession. And for example, what I was telling about the paralegals is true. Paralegals may not do as many things as they used because of the research and all that, but they will have to do other things, because work is always there, and there's always something to do.
I think which don't means we do not need lawyer more. Actually, it means we need more specialized lawyer to deal with more complicated case.
Hi, thank you all for your participation. So my question is more related to regularization and standardization of AI. So the usage that we can give to AI is basically unlimited. Like you can use it for basically anything. So of course there are some general points like data protection that you can regularize in every possible use that you can give for AI. But given this broad usage that it could have, what would be the best way to create regularization and standardization when we cannot actually foresee every possible situation on which AI could be used? So if we try to regulate it in every way, it will be literally impossible and we will never end. So how can we make sure that we have a good enough regularization that cover the most important points, knowing that we can never actually standardize every use that AI can possibly have?
Well, I will ask from, I'll answer from, to make my life easier, I will maintain within the scope of the panel, which is M&A, right? So I think there are 4 major things that maybe you can look at. First of all, make sure that you have a very good database that will be used for the AI to process it. Depends on how big our firm is and what type of information is available, but make sure that it's processing a good database. Know what are the bias that are there, so on, so you can anticipate what will be the potential errors that it will make. Understand how the algorithm works, how it processes, and train yourself and your employees to make good questions and to also understand the answers and know and have a critical understanding on them.
So when early days when I was practicing law, these websites came out, and one of the companies that I worked for when I was in-house, when I was general counsel, is we bought a company because they had 2 million emails. And what we did with those emails is spam the heck out of them. We sent everybody, we sold the list, and because it was legal. And so going to your point is, at that time, it was a new frontier. That's what we have now. We can't predict everything we need to do. Over time, law will come in. Particularly, without being too critical, in the United States, we're very bad at being able to regulate or control things in advance. We are reactive instead of proactive, partially because most of those people don't know, Facebook from Google or whatever. But the bottom line with it is, you have to take existing law, put it on top of what exists now, find the areas where it's not working, mistakes will be made, and then you will tweak it. And that's what we saw with blockchain. That's what we saw with crypto when the crypto window. This is the same exact thing. We will do the best you can. You use your brain, you figure out things that make sense in terms of historically, but it will be tweaked and constantly changed. So today we can't spam people, and we have these laws, and we have privacy rules, and we have the GDPR, which is driving my clients crazy. But the bottom line is that's going to be, it's trial and error.
It's remind me of old saying in China. If you have a lot of food material, you should know how to cook.
we were talking about, or you were talking about, AI policy of usage. And so I have a question from the buyer's perspective. So if I have a client, what are the main clauses that an AI policy must have to ensure risk and mitigate future risk that could align with from a buyer's perspective and the seller?
So I'll have a few comments and I let everybody else in the panel chime in. But clearly, you have to think about the policy in terms of who it applies to. So if I'm representing the company, I need to make sure the policy addresses things like confidentiality, how it can be used internally with our own confidential information, and how it can be used externally with the client or the customer of that person, of that company. And so the policy is from two perspectives, right? Similarly with data security, is the person you're asking to use it, like if you have an agreement with a consultant, how do you make sure that they're not misusing AI? And then how do you make sure that within your own company? It's no different than a lot of challenges we have in terms of company policies, right? We have a concern with our websites in terms of how we process personal information, client, customer information, and then how it's being used by consultants, vendors, technology, platforms. And so that is a key. So anything that you think of in terms of generally with protections and policies is the same. Indemnification. I want to make sure that if someone uses my information, or if they're using the client's information, we're indemnified for the misuse. So it applies the same way.
I would add a good termination clause. I always try to design according to the transaction, because each transaction is going to be different. But I always try to have a way out, because otherwise, when troubles come, you don't have a way out, and then you have to go to the law and to the court. So if you have a good way out, a good termination clause, a good indemnification, the AI can allow you to design a very good one. And it works. It helps. I mean, always focus in a go-back clause.
Hi. It's a pleasure. Mr. Berkman mentioned how the U.S.'s standpoint towards regulation usually differs from the EU. I'd like to know, in this area of AI, how do you believe it will differentiate itself? Sorry. How will the U.S. differentiate itself in regards to AI regulation from the EU?
So I think it's a combination of sort of something we also saw with blockchain and crypto. The EU started coming out with rules, and we started thinking about them by adopting some of them and thinking about that. Same thing certainly with privacy policy. The GDPR and EU rules on that have been way advanced of the United States. The United States is just starting. California is a prime example, Maine, some other states. My partner Jim, who's sitting in the back, could talk about this all day long, about how privacy is creeping into and will be part of every state law and on the federal level. But we need to think about it in terms of develop our own based on our own experience. It's what I said before. It will be a trial and error. We will do things, it will work, some of it won't, and we will tweak it. And we'll look behind and say, now we got this right, and we will constantly tweak it. So that's how it works.
But do you think it will be regulated through a statutory law or through case law? Through case law, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, from a business law, corporate law, yeah, it will never be. We don't codify things, only in very limited circumstances, but it will be in things like deepfake and other things that we'll talk. Certainly, I mean, there's a law right now that's that's being discussed in the United States about these type of things, about how AI generated inappropriate pictures of a woman, and how Congress has taken that up and is trying to do something about it. But in the field of corporate law, we don't codify in that way. It tends to be developed by case law or just by rules that companies and and you know, the parties involved in the transactions adopt.
The old saying is that the Americans invented, the Chinese produce it, and we Europeans will regulate it. Which is some difference. And I work in the Emirates too, and they say, and we earn it. We don't know, perhaps we will have a regulation next week by presidential morning bulletin, whatever. I think it needs a regulation, and I think it needs a cross-border regulation, because transactions are cross borders and standards are cross borders, but we don't know what comes up. It's easy to say, we don't know what comes up.
Okay, so I guess with that last comment, we finish the panel. Thank you all guys for attending, for participating. It's been a pleasure.